Hello everyone, my name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. Alright, so after doing all of that Van Halen, after a big Van Halen rap party, after covering and talking about Van Halen way more than I ever thought I would ever talk about Van Halen in my lifetime, it's time to move on to the next generation of Van Halen. So this is Mammoth WVH. That WVH stands for Wolfgang Van Halen. This is Eddie's son's premiere album, folks. So the question is, what do I think of it? Well, before I get into what I think about it, the first thing I want to mention is, according to the liner notes, this entire album was written and performed by Wolfgang Van Halen himself. Now, I'm going to assume that I know for a fact Wolfgang can play bass. He toured with Van Halen replacing Michael Anthony, so we know he can play bass. It's pretty easy to picture that he should be a somewhat competent guitarist too when you look at who his dad is. Now that's going a little overboard until you've actually seen him play some Van Halen on guitar and he rips it the fuck up. So, and then his uncle was Alex Van Halen, so chances are he's probably picked up some drum riffs along the way too. Oh, and because of his dad, he's picked up some keyboard stuff too. Really, this is like the ultimate musician's kid got the chance to do exactly what they wanted to do, and they did it exceptionally well. Few things that you will notice before I even get into the songs. I'm going to bring this up a lot. You're going to hear the terms Canadian grunge. Anytime that I mention just grunge on its own, I'm probably referring to the Alice in Chains grunge sound. And there's a lot of Canadian grunge. Oh my god, it sounds really like this album sounds like Sammy Hagar era Van Halen meets grunge, but not the way that the Balance album does it, because Canadian grunge and American grunge were kind of different grunges, and weirdly this feels very Canadian grungy. A lot of Canadian. I would have swore that the dude grew up the son of a Canadian musician, okay, with the amount of Canadian sounding influence I can hear in here, in the sound and the tone. A lot of it maybe is the producer and the mixer and whatnot. That is Michael Elvis Basket who did that. So I don't know how much of that is him with the sound that he created along with Wolfgang, or how much is just Wolfgang's influences. But there is definitely a lot of that on here. Now, whenever you hear anything on here that sounds rockish, obviously it's going to have some type of VH rockish feel. Surprisingly, though, to me, it's surprising and it's not. When you look at when Wolfgang was born and everything like that, it makes sense that the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen would be a little more ingrained into him than the David Lee Roth era, even though he played touring the David Lee Roth music. And that's a matter of what you actually grew up listening to. And he would have grown up listening to this, hearing this all the time, that type of stuff. So it's just naturally going to seep into there, right? And as for the grunge, same kind of answer on that one. It's kind of surprising, but okay. Prattled on enough about that. Let's get into the actual songs. So the first song, Mr. Ed, okay, this is just a rock song, man. This one's just out there right off the bat. Great way to start the album. Perfect energy, perfect vibe, fast pace. Lets you know exactly what to expect going into this album. The type of energy, the sound, stuff like that. This one is very much a rock song. Now, a lot of what I say about that Canadian grunge sound, I think, comes down also to Wolfgang's voice, because he has a voice that does remind me a lot of is it Rain dude from Our Lady? Okay, I'm gonna have to pop stuff up now. Vocalist from Our Lady Peace really reminds me of him in a lot of ways. Reminds me of Edwin from I'm Mother Earth in a lot of ways. There's a few other ones in there, just in his delivery. A little bit nasally, a little bit on the higher end, not trying to do the chest bumping, you know, kind of machismo kind of stuff. But not, you know, at the same time, you know, not Robert Plant, not, I don't want to go into the metal vocalists like Bruce Dickinson and Dio, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not singing it. He's singing, but, you know, it's kind of more just basic vocalist kind of singing. Horribly Alright follows that up. This is another great banger. This one is, for as far as I'm concerned, this one is poised to be in a movie somewhere along the way. Good car chase action sequence. I could totally see this one being played in there. Have the perfect vibe and attitude for that. Epiphany. This one takes the energy down a bit. Moves into a little bit more of a softer pocket, but it still stays thick and heavy at the same time. And this is where I mentioned Canadian punk for the first, or Canadian alternative or grunge for the first time, because this one really reminds me of the Gandharva's First Day of Spring. Not that I'm saying that it's a replica of it, or there's just an essence and a vibe to it. Really kind of reminds me of that. Then we hit Don't Back Down. Okay, so really interesting. There is another band I'm going to bring up quite a few times while I'm talking about this. And it's just because they have that modern day heavy rock sound, and it's a comparable point, and that would be Nickelback. Don't Back Down has a Nickelback vibe to it. And when I say Nickelback, anytime I reference Nickelback in this, I'm talking the cooler stuff with Nickelback. You know, like in this particular case, I'm talking about more high octane Nickelback kind of songs. You know, Side of a Bullet would be the first thing that kind of comes to mind. Burn It Down is another one. I think that's the name of the song. But, you know, like there's the heavy high octane, really kind of, you know, fist high, head banging, that type of high octane stuff, not the acoustic-y crap. And Don't Back Down is one of those songs really cool that way. That is followed up by Resolve. Okay. Resolve is where the album really kind of starts leaning into more of a grungy kind of sound. And this is that Alice in Chains kind of grungy sound, that drone that Alice in Chains does. That you hear on like all of their songs. And one, you know, when you listen to each song broken up, not as an album, great, fine. As an album, the drone becomes an issue. That is not a problem on here. Thankfully, that drone kind of vibe, Wolfgang uses really well. But moving on from there, this is a bit heavier than what, you know, on the overall sound, so it's really kind of cool. There's going to be huge fans of the song, without a doubt. I can really see a lot of people really digging on this song, and I personally would love to shoot a music video for this song. I think it's a really good song. I think it's a really good bust-out kind of track, really great single kind of track. But it's not a song I would go out of my way to listen to, and that's just because it's a little too hard on that droney, grungy side for me. That's all. Outside of that, though, killer song. You'll Be the One. Okay, so remember earlier I mentioned without sounding like Van Halen Balance? Okay, this one kind of reminded me of Van Halen Balance, just a little bit. And I don't mind it when the album's playing. I don't think of it outside. That's kind of the problem when you get into the middle of this album, alright? The album starts off really strong. When it comes towards the end, it gets really strong again. The middle section, because it goes into such a grunge alternative kind of thing, it gets a little, like, boring and worn out for me. You'll Be the One is followed up by Mammoth. Mammoth, this is Canadian grunge. 100% Canadian grunge. I mean, I'm talking, I'm Mother Earth. Really kind of banging in the back of my head, man. Is that Mother Earth? Is that Mother Earth? The only downside is I'm not a fan of Mother Earth, so when this song or when this album isn't playing, I don't think of this song. And when I say I'm Mother Earth, it could be I'm Mother Earth with Edwin. It could be I'm Mother Earth after Edwin. Either one kind of works. I was thinking both with this. After that, we go into Circles. Alice in Chains. Way too Alice in Chains unless you're into Alice in Chains. Nope. Circles is one of those ones where just not my thing. But there will be other people that will absolutely love it. I'm telling you. The Big Picture. This one's Stone Temple Pilots beats Nickelback, but Nickelback pre-Silver Side Up. So late Stone Temple Pilots as well, when they were kind of doing more of that rock single kind of thing and less of the alternative grunge kind of thing. The post-grunge era, I hate using the term post-grunge, but it is the perfect example because you can still hear the grunge-ish in there with the fuzz and the standard kind of thing. But at the same time, you're getting a lot more of a rock sound. And that's the same thing with that, when I say Nickelback pre-Silver Side Up, that's kind of their pre-sound as well. Think It Over follows that up. This is Van Weezer. Great, fun, poppy, and wonderful. You're to Blame. This one borrows a few riffs from a few different places. It does it in a great way that reminds me of early Rage Against the Machine meets Canadian grunge / alternative. It's the vocals. It's literally Wolfgang's vocals where once again, I gotta point out, that's why I lean a little more towards the Canadian grunge and alternative in that. Just kind of has that kind of sound to it. After that, we go to Feel. Okay, so Feel, I normally don't like songs where the drums lean into a more erratic kind of vibe. Especially when they get to the point where it sounds like a kid just banging on the drums. Like doing it in rhythm, but it sounds like the kid banging on all the drums and hitting every last drum because you want to hit every last drum without actually methodically thinking about it. But on this particular song, it actually walks that line perfectly to keep it enjoyable. The drums don't get crazy erratic. There's a few times where it's kind of like, and the song itself kind of but it holds it in place enough where I can enjoy it. Then we get to Stone. I really kind of dig on this one. It's totally Alice in Chains, but without the drone. So if you took Alice in Chains, took that whole, okay, I made my point. Sorry to Alice in Chains fans out there. I have much respect for Alice in Chains. It's not my sound. So, okay. But so if you took Alice in Chains, you took that droney sound out of it, you made it nice and clean and crisp. That's what Stone is. Now, this is not a song I would normally go out of my way to listen to, but it's also not a song I feel in any way, shape, or form to skip. I think it is a really good, solid tune, just not my kind of tune. And then the album finishes up with Distance. Distance is a great way to end the album. It's very positive, very uplifting, very full of life, which is kind of ironic in its own way since, it's that whole... Okay, when it comes to this album in general, there's a lot of times on this album lyrically where one goes one of two ways with the lyrics. There's a lot of songs on here where it's either reflecting on relationships and things that have gone wrong that way, or reflecting on the loss of his dad. I'm clearly leaning more into the loss of his dad. Distance is a perfect example of that, where, you know, is that love after you lose someone. I mean, lose someone, you're never going to get them back, you know, depending on your views on afterlife, stuff like that, right? The whole way around, would I recommend this album? Absolutely. I would totally recommend this album. While I downplay it and say that the album is not entirely for me, it's not. But there are definitely people out there that would really dig on this album. Seriously, if you're into Alice in Chains, this album's worth checking out, man. I think it's got enough of that element in it that it's pretty cool. If you're into the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen, it's got some elements in there that are really cool. I don't hear anything from the David Lee Roth era in here. I don't. Like I said, it's got some Nickelback-ish elements in there, you know. Nothing... Not the bad Nickelback, not the stuff that everybody makes fun of, but the good Nickelback, the stuff that people actually enjoyed and liked. And then, you know, if you're into Canadian grunge alternative, you know, if you're into I'm Mother Earth, Our Lady Peace, Tea Party a little bit, not really that much, but Tea Party a little bit. Who else in there can I think of? You know, like there's a lot of vibe in there, that really Canadian kind of vibe, surprises the hell out of me. Anyways, folks, that's it. I'm done rambling. It's over. I'm done. Let me know what you think of this album. I mean, personally, I know I'm trying to be balanced on this one. No pun intended. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so let me know what you think of the album. On your way down there, you'll see a thing that will take you to Patreon in the write-up section. Click on that. Go on over to Patreon. There's a like button, subscribe button, bell for notifications. Please hit those. If you're on Rumble, there's the join and follow button. Peace, love, take care.